Hey there guys, what's going on? Slappy here, and today I'm bringing back an old series called Free-to-Play Fridays where I check out random free-to-play games, and this week I wanted to check out a game that I've been looking at called Black Squad. It's a free-to-play game for PC, it's on Steam, and it's pretty cool. It's a modern warfare type game. It's a modern warfare FPS, modern guns, modern maps, all that stuff. It has 5 different game modes. It has your team deathmatch. It has an 8v8 and a 5v5 search and destroy type game mode. It has an assassination game mode and one other one that I don't remember. And I've tried to give a little bit of structure to this game, so I'll sort of give my first impressions, then pros, cons, final review. I played the game about 4 hours total, maybe 4 hours between a couple days, and it's a pretty interesting game. There actually is a story behind the game. It's just not really in the game. It's more sort of something that's extra if you want to like care about it. Basically, there's Viper Circle and Peacemaker. It's 2 sort of different groups, and you can fight for one or the other, and they fight each other. It's actually kind of a cool story. Basically, Viper Circle is an international corporation operating legitimate businesses, but it's actually like a crime organization. And then Peacemaker is a UN task force that battles against them. It's kind of cool if you're into the story. My first impressions, when I just jumped into the game, it looks pretty good for a free-to-play game. I played it on ultra settings, and it ran incredibly smooth, which is weird. I don't have a super high-end PC, and it ran really well. I was well above 30 frames a second the whole time. I mean, the game doesn't look unbelievable, you know, it's not on par with a lot of the top-end games, but for a free-to-play game, it looks pretty good, and it's really well optimized. It's a very smooth game. I turned down the graphic settings to medium at one point just to sort of see, and it still looks pretty good. I mean, definitely no complaints about it. If you're kind of curious about the requirements for it, the recommended requirements are a NVIDIA GTX 560 and 2.4 gigahertz CPU, so 4 gigabytes of RAM. It only takes up 5 gigs on your hard drive, so it's all pretty minimal. They've managed to pack the game into a very small sort of box. I think they were probably trying to optimize it for like the lower end PCs of non-North American markets, sort of that MOBA-esque strategy, and it kind of just ended up running really well, which is great. Especially free-to-play games, sometimes they run so poorly, but this one ran really well, so that was kind of a cool first impression. The other one that I had, that I wrote down, so I wrote my first impressions after like my first game playing it, and then the rest of this I put together after I played it for a bunch of hours. The other thing I wrote down was it was really easy to just jump in and shoot stuff. I mean, if you want just a quick experience of shooting other people and them shooting you, super easy to just jump into this game and start shooting people. It was super download, install, click play, you're shooting stuff. It was really easy to jump in. I didn't have to change any settings. It just ran well, and it was easy to get into. Those were kind of my first impressions. It looked pretty good, it ran pretty well, and it was easy to get into. Now I want to do some pros and cons, because there's definitely a few of both of those, and then I'll kind of round it all together with the final review. I'm sort of new to this style video, so I'm trying something a little bit different. Pros of this game, the first thing I want to talk about is the guns. There's actually not that many guns in this game. It's still in development from what I've been able to gather from sources. It makes it sound like I'm some sort of inside expert. From what I've been reading, there's still lots of development happening. Right now, I think there's about 20 guns in the game. You have 3 of them. When you first start up the game, you have an assault rifle, a submachine gun, and a sniper rifle. And there is some balance issue between the guns, but we'll talk about that in cons, perhaps. There's the guns, the models are really good looking. They look really good. They sound pretty good. I don't know how accurate the sound is. I mean, if you're someone that cares about the accuracy of the gun sound, this probably isn't, you know, the game you'd be playing. But, I mean, there's enough guns that I could see it being interesting to kind of keep going. And there's a pretty cool store system with the guns. Basically, you unlock in-game gold the more you play. And you buy guns with the in-game gold, and the guns are actually permanent to your account, unlike other free-to-play shooters that I've played. Basically, you get gold, you unlock different guns, and you have 3 loadouts that you can play in-game, and you can switch between the 3 loadouts, and then between games you can adjust the loadouts and whatnot. But there's more than a few guns. I mean, enough that you can probably have some variation, and the weapons feel quite different. I played a couple different guns, I think 5 or 6 different guns. You can also pick up guns off dead bodies, so I probably tried more than 6 guns, but some of them were, you know, 1 kill sort of thing. The weapons feel very different, they look very different, and they look pretty good, and they sound pretty good, so that's pretty cool. The skill gap, another pro for this game. I don't know if this is a pro or a con. For me, it's a pro. The skill gap is really not very big. I never saw anyone with above a 2.0 KD, and I never saw anyone going too negative. The skill gap just isn't that big in this game, which I think is great for a game like this. That, I mean, I could see this being a game that if you had 15 minutes, you'd jump in, play 1 or 2 games, kill a bunch of stuff, and you're like, all right, that scratches the itch for a while. So I think skill gap not being huge is kind of nice for this game. It's just very hop in, shoot stuff. You don't feel like you're a detriment to the team. You might feel like you're helping, but really, it's not crazy. It also keeps the games really close. I don't think there was ever a game I was involved in that was like a blowout by any stretch. So that's kind of nice. The other pros I've talked about a little bit. The game looks fairly good and runs really well. Now let's talk about cons. I talked about this one a little bit earlier. The balance between guns is a bit uneven, which I think happens in any game. Battlefield 4 went through phases where everybody used 1 or 2 guns, and this is sort of doing the same thing. I started noticing it. If I killed a high-level guy, I would sort of look at what gun he had, and a lot of them were using like the same 2 guns. So I feel like there is a bit of a gap in the gun. Another issue I had with this game is the bullet tracking is a bit suspect. There was times I'd be perfectly aimed at someone's head and it wouldn't register as a hit. And then they'd sort of like turn around, snap on me, and get a headshot first whoa. That also might... I don't think hackers were too big of an issue because I never saw anyone with crazy enough stats to make me think they were hacking. But the balance issues between the guns and the bullet tracking is a little strange. There was also times where I would definitely shoot someone in the leg and it would be a headshot. That's a bit of an issue, but it's not crazy enough that it like ruins the game experience unless you're like a Counter-Strike, you know, you want it to be perfect sort of person. It's a little bit, I don't want to say buy to win, it's a little bit beneficial to put money into the game, like any free-to-play game. Most of the stuff is cosmetic, but there are certain advantages to putting money into the game, which it wasn't enough to make it so that you felt like you had to buy to be good at the game, but it definitely looks like it helps. Customization is fairly minimal as a con. I'm not crazy into huge customization on weapons and that sort of stuff in types of like games like this, but I do like when they have the system. The customization is pretty minimal. You have 3 loadouts. The guns are pretty standard. It's fairly minimal. It's not super customizable, but that doesn't really bother me too much. I just like when the system's there. I only played 4 maps my entire time, and the maps are plain, I guess would be the word I'd use maybe. The maps are, well, you guys have probably seen the footage that's been on the screen for a bit here and there. The maps, so there's a few different game modes, which I talked about before. There's 5 different game modes. The Search and Destroy, I feel like all the maps were made for the Search and Destroy game mode, but aren't really that good for that game mode either. They're sort of like, they feel like small versions of Counter-Strike maps, if that makes sense. It's like if you took a Counter-Strike map and cut it in half. That's sort of what these maps feel like. They are not super creative, they're not super great. They just feel very meh. They're not really too terrible, but they're just not that well designed. They don't look particularly interesting. A lot of them are very similar. I think they reused a lot of assets, which might just be to keep the game size smaller, and maybe it runs a little better if you do that. I'm not really too sure how game will work. But the maps are kind of whatever, which, yeah, I don't know. Kind of a con for me. I like when the maps are a bit more interesting, but they weren't too detrimental to the overall game experience. Anyway, sort of a final review for me of this game. If you're looking for like a pretty decent sort of modern warfare Call of Duty experience on PC, this is basically that. There's enough guns to keep it interesting. It's not super skill-based, although I know people argue COD is skill-based. This is very a COD-like experience. It's very fast-paced, respawn's very short, there's lots of killing and dying. The search and destroy game mode's almost identical to Call of Duty. It's really that Call of Duty experience on PC. It's not like playing Battlefield or Counter-Strike. It's not as calculated. It's much just balls to the wall. Let's have a good time. Let's kill stuff. Which, I mean, a lot of people want. So that's pretty good for this. The replayability in this game is kind of minimal for me. I have enough shooters that I already would rather play than this one that I'm probably not going to come back to this game. But, you know, if I didn't have those other games, this would be pretty good. The only thing I'll say about the replayability of this game is sort of the lack of map choices. Maybe I just got unlucky, and in the 4 hours I played, I only got a couple maps. But I don't think there's that many maps in this game. I could not find that information anywhere for whatever reason. But, yeah, the replayability is fairly minimal. I feel like it'd get very repetitive very fast. Already some of the maps I was like, alright, we end up in a standstill at this point, and it's just going to be us killing each other back and forth. But overall, it's a great game if you just want a quick game of shooting things and you don't have a super good PC. It's not as fun as other shooters for me. It's a bit fast-paced. It's a bit too killing and dying. There's not as much strategy involved in this game, I don't think. But it's a pretty good game for a quick game of shooting things. That's sort of my... It's a pretty good game for a quick game of shooting things. That's probably the tagline that you can take away from this. Anyway, that's about all I have to talk about Black Squad for. Let me know what you think of this video, if there's things I should improve or whatnot for next week, what you guys think of the overall everything about it. I'd love to hear in the comments down below because I like trying out new games, especially ones that are free. And I wouldn't mind continuing this. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. And if you guys want to check out Black Squad, it's over on Steam. It's pretty cool. I mean, it might be worth a download. Either way, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Leave a like to this video and subscribe for more of whatever the heck I do on this channel. I'll catch you guys later. Ciao!